21 miles. That is all the space the global economy has to breathe through. At its narrowest, the Strait of Hormuz squeezes the world's oil supply into two shipping lanes, each just 2 miles wide, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Roughly 20% of the world's daily oil consumption moves through that corridor. When it closes, the math becomes brutal immediately. On February 28, 2026, following U.S. Israeli strikes on Iranian targets, maritime traffic through the strait dropped by more than 90% according to the Defense Horizon Journal. The largest single energy disruption in modern history, by that measure, happened in a single day. And now the world is asking a question that sounds simple on a map but falls apart under engineering scrutiny. Why not just build around it? The answer involves a mountain range, hundreds of billions of dollars, and a gap that no pipeline or canal currently bridges. Before we talk about what might be built, let's talk about what is already running. Saudi Arabia built its answer to this exact problem 40 years ago. The Petroline, officially the East-West crude oil pipeline, runs 1,200 kilometers from the Abqaiq oil fields on the Gulf Coast to the port of Yanbu on the Red Sea. It was constructed during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s for one reason: to move Saudi oil to market without passing through Hormuz. According to Wikipedia's updated entry and multiple energy sources, the pipeline's surge capacity reached 7 million barrels per day in 2026 after Aramco converted parallel natural gas liquids lines to carry crude, a conversion first tested after Houthi drone strikes on Abqaiq in 2019. Here is where the competitor channels stop. Here is where Iron Report goes one step further. The pipe can carry 7 million barrels, but the port at the other end, Yanbu, can only load approximately 4 million barrels per day onto tankers, according to European Business Magazine's analysis. Exports from Yanbu surged to around 47 million barrels per day, a 330% increase over pre-war levels, according to maritime AI firm Windward. But the terminal was never built to sustain maximum flows indefinitely. The UAE has its own bypass. The Habshan-Fujairah pipeline, 380 kilometers from Abu Dhabi's inland oil fields to the port of Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman, carries approximately 1.5 million barrels per day, according to CNBC and Al Jazeera. It became operational in 2012 at a final cost of $4.2 billion, according to the Engineering News Record. The International Energy Agency estimates combined realistic export capacity through these two routes at between 5 million barrels per day. The Strait of Hormuz normally carries 20 million. The gap, roughly 15 million barrels per day, is not covered. That is the problem every mega project you have seen discussed online is trying to solve. The canal idea has been circulating for decades. The basic concept: carve a waterway through Oman's Musandam Peninsula, the narrow finger of land that juts into the strait, connecting the Persian Gulf directly to the Gulf of Oman, bypassing Iranian-controlled waters entirely. On a flat map, this looks straightforward. The two bodies of water are sometimes less than 50 miles apart. Then you look at what sits between them. The Musandam Peninsula is not flat land. It is part of the Hajar mountain range, one of the most geologically rugged regions in the Middle East, with limestone peaks reaching 3,000 meters, according to Arab News. Cutting a canal wide enough for supertankers through that terrain is not an engineering project. It is a different category of problem entirely. For comparison, the Suez Canal has 0 locks. It runs through flat desert. The Panama Canal, 82 kilometers long, has just 6 pairs of locks and sits in one of the wettest regions on Earth, with a natural lake providing water for the lock system. A Musandam Canal would need hundreds of locks to lift ships up and over the mountain range, according to Arab News' engineering analysis. The Hajar Range is approximately 100 kilometers wide. There are no rivers, no lakes. In a semi-arid desert environment, every lock cycle would require massive amounts of seawater to be pumped uphill at continuous cost just to move each ship through. Arab News, citing an assessment of the engineering requirements, described the rock removal required as potentially exceeding all human construction projects in history combined. Cost estimates range from $100 billion to $300 billion depending on the route and specification. A 2008 Dubai study cited $200 billion for a 180-kilometer version, and that study is thought to have concluded the project was impractical before it was shelved, according to Arab News reporting. There is currently no funded project, no official Omani government approval. No engineering consortium on contract. What exists is a concept that resurfaces whenever Hormuz makes headlines, confirmed by Factually.co's independent analysis of current reporting. This is not a reason to dismiss it permanently. It is a reason to be accurate about what stage it is actually at. Here is the project that is actually moving. The Iraq Development Road is a 1,200-kilometer combined highway and railway corridor connecting the Grand Fa port in Basra on the Persian Gulf to the Turkish border at Ovakoy, and from there through Turkey's rail and road network to European markets. A memorandum of understanding was signed in April 2024 between Iraq, Turkey, Qatar, and the UAE, according to the International Railway Journal. Design work was confirmed complete in September 2024 by Iraq's Transport Affairs Advisor Nasser al-Assadi, according to the International Railway Journal. Turkey's transport minister put the financing framework at approximately $20 billion and confirmed that Turkish contractors would play a major role, according to Turkey Today. The Wilson Center analysis places realistic total costs closer to $23.9 billion, significantly above the $17 billion figure cited in most coverage. Groundbreaking has been delayed pending Iraqi parliamentary conditions, with Turkey's minister noting in October 2025 that if no obstacles arose, completion of initial phases could take approximately 5 years. This project operates on a different logic than the canal. It does not attempt to move oil tankers through mountains, it moves containerized cargo and freight overland, shifting the trade flow entirely away from maritime choke points. According to a 2025 trial run cited by Wikipedia's Development Road entry, a shipment from Poland to the UAE via Turkey and Iraq was completed in 12 days. The equivalent Red Sea route takes 21 days. But the development road has its own vulnerabilities. Iran, which is not included in the project, has the ability to undermine it through allied groups inside Iraq, according to the Middle East Council on Global Affairs. Northern Iraq remains a contested zone. The PKK question between Turkey and Iraq is unresolved. And the Kurdistan regional government has not been formally integrated into planning, which the same analysis identifies as a sustainability risk. This is a real project. It is advancing. It is also more complex than the headlines suggest. Here is the number that puts everything else in context. The Strait of Hormuz carries approximately 20 million barrels of oil per day, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Combined realistic bypass capacity through current pipelines, Petroline and Habshan Fujairah sits between 3.5 and 5 million barrels per day, according to the IEA. That leaves a gap of roughly 15 million barrels per day that no existing or near-term infrastructure covers. There is a second problem that receives almost no coverage. The existing bypass pipelines carry crude oil only. Refined products, diesel, jet fuel, naphtha, liquefied petroleum gas have no bypass pipeline. None. Arne Loben Rasmussen, chief analyst at Global Risk Management, told Middle East Eye that roughly 30% of Europe's diesel imports and half its jet fuel imports came from the Middle East entering 2026. A crude pipeline does not solve a diesel shortage. And according to Engineering News Records analysis, Iran understands the bypass infrastructure precisely. Its targeting strategy has not been random. GPS jamming and signal denial incidents recorded across UAE coastal waters on March 4, 2026, specifically targeted vessels attempting to use bypass routes. The exit ramps are being targeted as deliberately as the main road. The standard framing of this crisis is that Iran is trying to strangle the global economy. That framing is incomplete. According to European Business Magazine's analysis, Iran has reportedly offered to reopen Hormuz selectively, on yuan-denominated terms. That is not a military strategy. That is a financial one. Tehran is not thinking in weeks. It is thinking in what the same analysis describes as a generational contest over who controls the financial architecture of global energy. Every mega project announced in response to the Hormuz closure, the canal concept, the development road, the pipeline expansions, requires years or decades to build. In the short term, Iran's leverage does not diminish. It potentially increases because every day the closure continues, the economic pressure on importing nations, particularly in Asia, intensifies. Brent crude peaked near $120 a barrel in the weeks following the closure, according to CNBC. Freight costs surged approximately 500%, according to the competitor Scripps figure, a number consistent with the broader market reporting. These are not numbers that can be sustained indefinitely by importing economies. Here is what the evidence actually shows. The canal through the Hajar Mountains is an engineering concept that has existed in some form since 2008, has never received official Omani government approval, has never been funded, and according to independent engineering analysis, would require geological works on a scale that no project in human history has attempted. It may become viable if technology and political will align over decades. It is not a near-term solution. The Petroline and Habshan-Fujairah pipelines are real, operational, and running near or at capacity. Combined, they cover between 5 million barrels per day according to the IEA, roughly a quarter of normal Hormuz volumes. They are genuinely important. They are also not a replacement. The development road is the most concrete long-term project currently advancing. Design is complete. Financing frameworks are signed. Construction has not begun. Phase 1 targets 2028. The full project runs to 2050. It reshapes trade logistics for containerized cargo. It does not solve the crude oil gap in the near term. The world is not without options. But the options take time, cost enormous capital, and face real political and security risks that the most optimistic coverage does not fully address. Iran has played the Hormuz card precisely because no bypass exists at scale, yet. Whether that changes depends less on engineering ambition and more on whether the political and financial will to actually build these corridors survives the next decade of regional complexity. The bypass projects are real, the gap is also real, and for now, the gap is larger. This video is based on publicly available reports, official statements, and verified energy and defense analysis. Sources: U.S. Energy Information Administration, IEA, Arab News, CNBC, Engineering News Record, Al Jazeera, Wilson Center, International Railway Journal, European Business Magazine, Defense Horizon Journal, Factually,